Howdy folks, welcome back to You Got This. I'm Garrett, I'm your host, and I'm here to talk about shoes and feet. We covered feet a little bit in the last episode, but what good are feet without shoes? And naturally, like many things with a prosthetic leg, things get a little complicated. You can't just swap shoes like you would with a normal foot. There's a lot of variables. Things like the rise of the shoe. So if you have high heels and you put on a flat foot, when you lift up your heel, your leg goes forward. They do make feet that can be adjusted and pivot so that you could wear higher heels. If you watched Dancing with the Stars when Amy Purdy was on, you'd notice that her feet were pointed in the dancing, and that's because the feet she had let her adjust her heel, I guess ankle, so that she could have her toes pointed and wear either higher heels or, in her case, a lot of times no shoes at all. So that said, there's some options. So first, it's complicated getting shoes on sometimes. Boots in particular can be really, really difficult. But there's a couple things that can help. In this case, with this boot, I took it to a cobbler and had him add a zipper to it so that I can unzip it and it lets the foot get down there. Because when it's like this, the feet just don't, I'm not gonna really be able to do it justice here. When it's closed, your foot is basically just gonna get stuck. It just doesn't work. And so you have to have the zipper to get on a lot of shoes that are taller like this. And in addition to the zipper, you want Shoehorn, a good one, preferably a lot of them. I actually have experimented with a bunch. I have a small light one for travel, but I've ended up using this one the most. It's made by College Park, which makes the soleus. And it is heavy duty. You probably can't tell in the video, but this thing versus it's heavy. I got some of these on Amazon. I keep one in the car in case I ever go to a friend's house or need to take my shoes off. And I happen to be wearing shoes that I know I won't be able to get back on with the Shoehorn. At least I've got one of these in the car if I need it. The taller ones usually are better. The longer it is, this has a nice grip. The plastic ones work, but when you're using feet like this, they tend to bend. This one's getting a little beat up here. I'm sure it's just a matter of time until it cracks. So I'll use it occasionally, but I know this is more of a fallback than a priority. It was really more of an experiment, and the plastic ones just don't hold up when you're putting on a plastic foot or metal foot. So stick with metal, get heavy duty ones, get a few of them, keep them around the house, keep them by the front door, the back door, by your bed, wherever you think you might need them. I definitely recommend getting a few. And if you've got a pair of shoes that's really important to you and you like it, and you can get a zipper installed, talk to a cobbler about that. That's been huge for me. So that said, let's talk about rise. If you look at this, there's a big heel on these boots. So in this, it's not quite as easy, but you can get these. This is called the Adjust-A-Lift. My prosthetist gave me this on my last trip, and it has layers you can kind of peel off. And technically, it's for the heel so that if somebody has foot issues, you can lift your foot up and still have a comfortable position. But what you can do, and you're not going to be able to see this, instead of putting it in the heel, you can flip it around and slide it into the front of the shoe. And it can help counteract the degree of rise from your the ball of your foot to the heel of your foot. So it's just called Adjust-A-Lift. I'll include a link. You can get these on Amazon and add them to help mitigate, I guess, invert the heel rise. And that really can be huge. So we mentioned last episode, this foot can be worn with just a custom foot plate. So I can swap this foot plate for this one. It's got a little grip and it's got a the cleat here for clipping in on a bike. But the drawback is when you aren't wearing matching shoes on both feet, with this, if I have this on one foot and a shoe on the other foot, it doesn't quite equal out and you end up a little off kilter. And now if you're riding a bike, it's not a huge deal. In some cases, it can actually help just because of the nature of the mechanics of riding a bike. But for me, it didn't work, and I wasn't a huge fan of clipping in because it's so difficult to unclip. But, so with mountain biking, I can just put it in. And the nice thing here, let's grab this. Is it works just like my other shoe. It's a little heavy for putting on your prosthetic because these shoes in particular are just really, really thick rubber. And so it kind of creates this pendulum effect where your leg just swings. Not great to walk in, but I found it to be great for mountain biking. And when I have had to get off my bike to walk, it's a lot easier to walk with a full-size shoe than a tiny plate. So I like it that way. You can go either way. It just kind of depends on personal preference. And you could, of course, put it in shoes that had the cleats built into them as well, if you do want to clip in. And then there's snowboarding. You might be able to tell this boot's getting a little beat up from the corners of this foot. And that's just the nature of it. But it was a really hard thing for me to do at first when I first tried snowboarding, was accepting the fact that you may have to cut your boot up. In my case, I kind of cut there's a lot of elements on snowboard boots to keep the snow out. But as a result, they make it more difficult. You can't really pull the tongue out unless you cut some of those things. You may not have to, a lot of people don't have to. I've found that for whatever reason, it works for me. And it's also, in this case, this foot has a lot of adjustments, so it's easier to get it in and out if I want to make adjustments or pump up the shock to give me a little more air pressure. For the most part, I basically switch this foot to my snowboarding boot and back to my mountain biking boot or shoe seasonally. So I'm not going back and forth on a regular basis. I do it twice a year, put it in the snowboard boot, put the snowboard boot in the locker on the mountain, leave it. But if you're trying to snowboard and that kind of thing, and you have to cut up your boot, that's not going to be surprising. You know, you don't want to cut up things that are material and really help, but it's okay to cut it a little bit. So just a heads up on that if you ever get there. So let's talk barefoot a little bit. We could probably have a whole episode on managing life at the beach or at the pool as an amputee, because as you can tell, all the legs, they're basically just big buckets with the foot shell at the bottom. And they collect water and they collect sand, and it's heavy. And unless you drain it out, it's gonna be heavy, it's gonna be uncomfortable. So what you can do is drill holes in the bottom of your foot shell so that the water will drain out. Now, it doesn't necessarily drain out fast enough. You know, you might still kind of be finding yourself lifting your leg up and shaking it out. It's kind of how it works. So if you're not always wearing shoes, you may want to have a foot shell with holes in the bottom. And if you don't want to have holes in the bottom all the time, you can talk to your prosthetist and get a backup foot shell or an extra foot shell. You can do that with. Again, there's a whole world of things that we can talk about with this, the beach and the pool. They're not grippy. You have to disassemble your leg and rinse it off if it's been in chlorine and or salt water. You want to kind of rinse it off with fresh water to clean it off and put all the pieces out to dry. In some cases, it voids the warranty. Anyways, lots to talk about there. You'll also, if you haven't noticed, most of the foot shells do not have split toes. So if you're like me and before amputation you lived in flip-flops, which isn't the greatest idea, but you know, if you like them, you like them. You can't wear flip-flops, not easily. There's some hacks you can do. A lot of people will cut this part and install Velcro right here, and then install a little spot of Velcro on top of their foot, and they keep it on with Velcro. Anytime I've experimented with stuff like that, I've found it doesn't hold up. The sticky stuff gives out, and it's just not, it hasn't been sustainable for me. With my new foot, it actually does have a split toe. But the challenge is with prosthetics, you walk with flip-flops, you don't curl your toes down. Eventually your flip-flops just start flying off when you walk forward. And so for that, there is a company that has made these heel straps that you can attach to flip-flops, and they just clip on, and they make it so that you can wear flip-flops again, and they are awesome. You might be limited in your choices of what kind of flip-flops you can wear because they have to be strong enough to hold on. And this is from, the company's called Combat Flip-Flops, and I'll link to that in the notes as well. But this has been huge. I've been wearing flip-flops again for the first time in 4 years this week, and it's great. I miss it. I look forward to when I can go to the pool and that kind of stuff again and actually make the most of it. So, well, I won't put that on. All right, so we've talked about a few different types of shoes now. There's also, and we talked about this a little last week, with the running foot like this, it already has a sole. It doesn't need a shoe. And a lot of people will take shoes and that you can replace the bottom here. You just cut the sole off and they like tape it on, and there's a lot of customization. But in this case, I have a running shoe and a running foot. And the cool thing is, this shoe was free from Nike because they have a program called the One Shoe program. And again, I'll link to it in the notes. You call them up, you say, I would like a shoe in a size 12, and I prefer black, blue, or white, or whatever colors you want. And they'll do their best to pick out a shoe and just send it to you. Free, no charge, no shipping, no nothing. They just hook you up. So that's really cool if you have a situation, feet-wise or whatever, where you only need one shoe. That's great. Prior to my flip-flops, I lived in Hokas. You can see these have a huge, huge sole and kind of a really big rocker to them. So the toe kind of curves up and the heel, and they're so cushioned. These have been without a doubt, and all the Hokas really are the most comfortable shoes I've worn, and they're great. They're bulky, but if you're looking for comfort, definitely look into Hoka. The thing to know, because of the way feet work, prosthetic feet that is, the challenge may be, you'll see they're just flat. It kind of goes up a little bit, but not really. You want shoes that are neutral and have very little rise to them. So Hokas have pretty low rise. Ultra is another great brand that doesn't have much rise, but you don't want shoes that have too much arch or that kind of thing to affect your pronation and how much your ankles turn out, because the prosthetic feet are flat. And I went through a pair of Hokas that I didn't even realize all this, and wore them for a few months, and they had just ever so, slightly kind of corrected it. And my leg was worn out all the time, because when you don't have an ankle, any of that kind of movement transitions up to your knee and your hip. And it can cause all sorts of pain and discomfort. It's just not great. But the Hokas are great. And in this case, I have these elastic laces and I just leave them loose because for the most part, I wore these in the house, which sounds crazy, right? House shoes. I would buy multiple pairs of Hokas so that I'd have one clean pair just for indoors, because walking barefoot in a prosthetic leg, it's doable and it can work, but it can be slippery and a little dangerous. So for me, I don't know, 3 or 4 times when I wasn't wearing like tennis shoes or something with a grippy bottom, I fell down. And it's usually like making a transition to the stairs and kind of turning at the same time or whatever, the foot just would slip out from underneath me or whatever it was. So I found it's really, really helpful to have a pair of house tennis shoes, and it's just more comfortable. And these, you'll see, let's see here, are pretty darn easy to slide on and slide off. It'd be easier if I had the leg on, but they're easy to get on and off if you have situations where you need to take your shoes on and off regularly or whatever it is, and it makes it a lot easier. You don't necessarily need to have a shoehorn with you all the time. That's pretty sure we've covered everything. Oh, one more thing. Again, Nike coming through. Nike makes, these aren't them, but Nike has a line of shoes called Flyease. And what they are is basically versions of some of their standard shoes. And they've got a good amount of options now that have zippers built in. So you can get tennis shoes, and instead of having to try to get on like this, there'll be a zipper here down the side or around the heel that lets you pull the heel back so you can just slide the shoe on. So with prosthetics, or if you've got, situation where it's just really hard to put shoes on, a lot of it can be disabilities with dexterity. Sometimes it's harder for some people to manipulate a shoe and get it on their foot and all of that. But Nike Flyease, and again, I'll link to that in the notes, can be a great option for a shoe that is much easier to get on and off than your standard lace-up shoe. So definitely look into that if you're looking for options along those lines. So that's it. We've covered a lot of ground on shoes today. There's really a lot more to cover. I'll try to include a whole bunch of links for research and diving into it. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know, and I'd love to address them in a future episode. Thanks for watching. I'm Garrett, and you got this.